Hello and welcome to Mobile Youth, your number one resource for research and insights on youth culture and marketing. I'm Ghani Kunto, and with me is Graham Brown. Hi, Graham. How are you doing?
Good, you?
Good. I'm doing excellent. So, Graham, Mobile Youth has been around since 2001. That's more than a decade of tracking and researching youth all over the world. We've written books together outlining the changes to the youth market and their impact on different industries. What do you think is the most important change people need to be looking at right now in that youth marketing space?
Well, what was interesting, Ghani, was some of the latest research that we've done on the fragmentation of the media landscape for youth. Now, go back to 2001. Really, there were very few choices that young people had for media. There was TV, and some of them used the internet, and there were mobile phones, but mobile phones weren't really a media format of any substance like they are today. But what we have now is this real fragmentation, and I think that raises quite a few questions for youth marketers because it challenges a lot of the fundamentals of their models. A lot of those models were built on the fact that youth trust and attention could be bought through singular mediums. But now we're in a situation where there's multiple media, and a lot of youth marketers don't even know where to start in terms of where do I look for young people. So, really, that's what's interesting because that creates both a challenge for youth marketers and also an opportunity.
And the implications are felt already by the industries, right? That saying that if all you have is a hammer, then everything starts looking like nails. Well,
Yeah.
right now, young people are saying, hey, stop hammering us with the same thing. Yet getting to the point where business as usual is bad business.
And I think that what we found from the research is we've moved quite far from where we were in 2001, where there was just one mobile phone, and a good percentage of young people sent text messages on that phone. Now we have the situation with one mobile phone and seven social tools. So a young person, for example, will use text to get an urgent response from a friend, but will use WhatsApp or Kik or another kind of OTT messenger for a different kind of response. So I think one of the things we talked about when we co-wrote the Youth Marketing 101 book, Ghani, was that there is this thing called social context, which is really important to understand, is that each social tool is used in a different context. What youth marketers tend to employ when they sort of look at this area is that they tend to sort of have one context, and that is, about messaging. They don't really look at all the subtle nuances of why young people interact or how they interact with each other. And I think we're having to go to that level now because we've gone beyond single context technologies now to these multiple contexts. And the people who will best take advantage of that situation are those that really understand this technology, this messaging app is used for this specific purpose, and not trying to create this sort of industry dream of unified messaging, which simply doesn't exist.
Mhm. So there's no next big thing that will save the last big thing, right? It seems that everything has a specific purpose. Talking about messaging, you could have multiple messaging apps on your phone because one for friends for gossip, one for friends for emergency, one for family you're trying to avoid, and many things, right? Actually,
Mm.
talking about this, with phones, dual handset market, for example, it's the same kind of thing too, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm looking at 2010 to 2012, BlackBerry reached a peak in markets like Indonesia, India, Thailand. You can see young professionals carrying three BlackBerries at the same time. I mean, I met one in Jakarta, asked him about it, and he said one was to connect with work, one to connect with family, and one to connect with his mistress.
Let me ask you a question in relation to that sort of scenario. I mean, is it a real inconvenience for young people to do that, or do they seem to sort of be able to negotiate these multiple channels, these multiple medias quite well?
Hmm. It seems like that's what they want, actually. And the only thing that's keeping
Right.
them from doing that is just practicality
Hmm.
or price sometimes, right? I think it's a natural drive. Like we have different clothes for different social purposes. And those who can't afford it have different cars for different social purposes, right? To show off, to just take your family to work, etc. It's natural. I think youth today
Right.
are expecting this from other categories too. I think.
So I think there's an important point to make there about the distinction between youth and marketing in that context and with the older generation is that with us, the older generation, is that we tend to put a cost to those multiple means. There tends to be a bit of inconvenience with having two or three handsets or multiple messages on our phones, right? So for us, we want that kind of consistency because we have less time as you get older. You've got more money, less time. So you're willing to spend that little bit for that consistency. You want a product out of the box that works. Whereas young people, it appears that they're willing to sacrifice a little bit of convenience for something that allows them to have all of that, different areas covered. And it may be, you noted that it may be a price as an inhibitor. It may also be a driver. The fact that they may have two or three handsets because they've basically played all the providers off each other to get the cheapest deal. I mean, as an adult, you probably couldn't be bothered with that, right? Because you can afford it. But if you were younger, you might think, well, actually, that'd be a better deal for me, and I'm willing to make that sacrifice.
Mm.
So I think we have to understand, however it turns out, is that the values and costs associated with time and convenience are quite different for young people and older people. And that's quite important for marketers to understand, isn't it? Because what we tend to do is create something which we think is convenient, but then try and put it onto the youth market. And we don't understand that their values may be slightly different.
Yeah, yeah. We're creating things for us, while young people are, well, they're quite different than us who are older. Which is kind of funny because we were young once too, and somehow we just lost track.
A long time ago.
All right, Graham, thanks for your time. That was very insightful.
Thank you, Ghani.
All right, so that's it for this session. Keep coming back to mobileYouth.org to find the latest in youth culture and marketing. I'm Ghani Kunto with Graham Brown. See you around.